Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I'm coming with the full breakdown, position group by position group, for everything that happened on day 15 of the Washington Commanders 2023 training camp. I'm so excited. First of all, we have so much to talk about today that's really interesting. Most notably, a lot of injury updates. Boy, Calves are killing the Washington Commanders right now. Also, is Casimir Allen looking like the starting punt returner? Sadiq Charles, is he the starting left guard now that he's fully healthy? We have to talk about a lot of things. But we also have these joint practices with the Ravens coming up very soon. By the time you're probably watching this, it's probably today, technically, because I'm recording this starting as of 10 p.m. Eastern time right now, August 14th. And maybe by the time I finish recording, editing, uploading, it's probably gonna be like 12 a.m. We'll see how that goes, though. But either way, man, I'm super excited to talk about everything that happened today. A lot of really interesting updates as far as some players that look good, some players that look bad, some personnel changes, and again, of course, a big-time injury update. I think for the most part, though, don't panic. A lot of these injuries, out of an abundance of caution, we're just letting guys rest. But again, the theme for a lot of these injuries, maybe even all of them, is that if we had a game tomorrow, all of these guys would probably play. So again, don't panic, but we still got to dive into who got hurt and how bad it seems and take a look at who seems more injured than others. So before we dive into all that, and you already know, man, we're going position group by position group. I'm going to update y'all on the injuries. Then we're going to talk about the coaches, anything interesting from them. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, the tight ends, all the way down to the DB group. And we have some special teams updates, of course, because like I said, it's Casimir Allen officially the starting punt returner, and also some really interesting information concerning the joint practices coming up with the Ravens, like who's going to speak, when are the joint practices, all of that type of stuff. So without further ado, before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time immediately I release these informative and opinionated videos. Because if you don't have that bell clicked in, you'll maybe get the notification like a few days down the line. It's crazy. So make sure you have that bell clicked in if you want instant updates for every video that I come out with, because I feel like a lot of people don't know that's just how YouTube works. And then of course, man, appreciate all the support, man. I'm super excited to talk about everything we got going on today. I'm super excited about covering everything that's going on tomorrow. Stay tuned for all of the film sessions. Of course, I'm gonna be updating all of the clips from practices tomorrow and the day after that. And of course, I'll do breakdowns, position group by position group, for everything that happened through the joint practices against the Ravens. So stay tuned for that, everything. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so before we dive into the injuries, just wanted to let you know that today was the first time that they've pumped in artificial crowd noise. So that's really interesting. They had that going on, especially while they were in the huddle trying to call plays and get everybody situated. The speakers were about 40 yards behind where the players were and stuff like that, which is really interesting. And the crowd was there too. Like, we had fans there at the practice today, but they also wanted to simulate a little bit more noise than the fans were given while there. So I thought that was interesting, because we do got to work on those things. We brought in the refs, and then we realized that, oh man, we're doing a lot of pre-snap organizational penalties, like people lined up wrong, people moving a little too early, stuff like that. And the refs came in and helped us realize that stuff, and then we knew to correct that moving forward. And then also bringing in crowd noise. Now we get to see, can Sam Howell handle that? Can the offense hear him when he's in the huddle? Does he have a commanding voice to where everybody can hear the exact play where they need to be when they need to be there, all that type of stuff? So I'm glad that we're just simulating a lot of different things. Again, a few practices ago, we literally like took time to practice what do we do when we start on our own 1 yard line. We're pinned deep into our own end zone. Eric Bieniemy, man, I really appreciate what he's bringing to this team. Not only just strategy wise and things like that, coaching tips, but just like simulating random stuff like that. A lot of intangibles he's bringing to this team. And of course, he's always yelling at people. We're going to talk about that soon. And then big injury update, of course, Chase Young still dealing with this stinger. Out of an abundance of caution, only doing individual drills. Fedarian Mathis still isn't at practice. They say it's not that bad, but he's dealing with a calf injury along with numerous people. Sadiq Charles, also a guy dealing with a calf injury. I believe Logan Thomas is dealing with a calf injury as well. So we have like three technically starters, kind of, or at least heavy rotation guys that are all dealing with calf injuries. Again, man, that heat, I'm glad that it's gotten a little bit cooler in the DMV. It's still extremely hot down here. But man, them calf injuries are adding up. I feel like the heat may have something to do with it. I also feel like just some of it's bad luck. But yeah, man, I believe we now have Fadarian Mathis, Logan Thomas, and Sadiq Charles dealing with calf injuries. Logan Thomas and Fadarian Mathis just have not practiced since the game. Logan Thomas hasn't practiced since even before the Browns game. Also, Benjamin St-Juste wasn't at practice. And of course, defensive line coach Travell Warden is not at practice as well. They finally updated us on why he's been missing practice like the past week or two. And it's because he had back surgery. So starting with Travell Warden, our offensive lines coach, Ron Rivera said that he threw his back out somehow and will miss some time as he recovers from the surgery. So he will not be there for the joint practices tomorrow / if you're watching this and it's already August 15th today. So just to go ahead and let you know, we will not have our offensive line coach present. But again, he hasn't really been around for 2 weeks. So it's really not like we will really notice much of a difference, but you prefer to have all your coaches present, especially for something that big and monumental to how well we'll play throughout the season. But I'm pretty sure we'll be able to deal with it. We'll be able to adjust and do what we got to do. And then also Rivera said that Benjamin St-Juste tweaked his ankle, and that was yesterday, as in August 13th on Sunday when he supposedly tweaked it, and that's why he didn't practice today. And then they're saying that it's not that bad, but something to look out for. And then Samuel Cosmi at one point went down and needed help from the trainers to get to the sideline. He went in the tent and everything, but at a certain point, he kind of walked off gingerly on his own. It looked like his right leg was really hurting. I mean, it looked like it was super painful. But he limped off the field and he was pretty straight. And then after he went into the medical tent, they said that he came back and was participating in pass protection drills. So maybe nothing to worry about, maybe something super painful, but maybe something that didn't actually result in an injury or any damage or anything like that. But it was really interesting though, because when Samuel Cosmi went to the medical tent, Chris Paul was the one that replaced him as the starting right guard, which lets you know that Sadiq Charles was starting at left guard today for a lot of the time. So it sounds like whenever Sadiq Charles is fully healthy, they're still trying him at left guard, which I do not agree with. I'm ready to just go ahead and move on to Chris Paul. First of all, if anything, Chris Paul looked great. In my opinion, he flashed a lot against the Browns, and the Browns defensive line is nothing to laugh at. I mean, granted, I don't think Myles Garrett played, but that has nothing to do with Chris Paul in the interior, really. I feel like Chris Paul looks like an NFL starting left guard. I like him, and then with his athleticism and ceiling, I feel like if anything, he's only going to get better with time. And I feel like the more reps you give him, the more snaps you give him, especially in practices like these during training camp, it's only going to make them better. So I'm still not exactly understanding why we're forcing this Sadiq Charles situation. It's not like you're paying Sadiq Charles a lot of money. I would understand if we pay Sadiq Charles this crazy contract. This man is getting paid a very team-friendly contract right now. I do not understand why we're forcing Sadiq Charles at left guard, starting left guard, because Sadiq Charles is supposedly this guy with positional flex who can play guard and tackle. So if anything, he's a better backup than Chris Paul, and Chris Paul I feel like is going to be a better starter. So I just don't see the science behind why we're still trying to do this. But going back to Samuel Cosmi, Rivera said after practice that Samuel Cosmi hyperextended the knee but was fine. He was moving around pretty well. That's the exact quote that Rivera gave. So Samuel Cosmi sounds like he's good, but it could be a situation where they just show an abundance of caution and hold him out maybe during the practices against the Ravens, but I doubt it. I mean, they threw him back out there the same day and he was going with the one-on-one drills and pass protection, so I guess we're good. Then even at a certain point, Antonio Gibson lifted off the field after practice with an assistant athletic trainer, Mishiro Takahagi, I think his name is. And so I haven't gotten an update on him. After practice when Ron Rivera had his press conference, he didn't give an update on Antonio Gibson. So either it's bad and we don't know, or it's absolutely nothing. But it's being said that Antonio Gibson was dealing with cramps late in practice, and then when he left with the trainer, and then we just haven't gotten any updates since then. Also, now that we have all of these injuries starting to add up, nothing serious again though. It doesn't sound like anything is really tragic or serious, but at the same time, we got to watch and be who's going to even be there to participate in these joint practices against the Ravens over the next couple of days. We have Chase Young, Fadarian Mathis, Benjamin St-Juste, Logan Thomas, Samuel Cosmi, Antonio Gibson, just to name a few. Again, no injuries are very serious, but again, the Commanders have had just when in doubt, sit them type of approach so far in the offseason. Play it on the safe side every time. But these joint practices are very crucial to how successful this team will eventually be. Again, Ron Rivera brought up a statistic after practice yesterday, some analytics that said that teams that participate in joint practices tend to have less injuries throughout the season and tend to be more physical and better teams throughout the regular season as well. And so, I mean, you would want most of your starters, all of them hopefully, to actually participate in these joint practices rather than just going out there with a bunch of backups. So maybe with the joint practices, they'll kind of push caution to the wind a little bit more than they have been throughout this entire offseason so far. It's going to be really interesting to see who actually participates in these practices. I mean, that's going to be a pretty big injury update before we even dive into what happens in the practices when I do my breakdown tomorrow or today again. If you're already watching this, it's August 15th. We'll see though. And then coaching wise, man, Eric Bieniemy was yelling at the receivers today. I mean, he's always usually yelling at people, but it was really noteworthy because Bieniemy was yelling at the receivers for not fighting for the ball enough on some defensive back pass breakups today. Even Jahan Dotson got yelled at, and Jahan Dotson's been pretty much uncoverable most of the time, almost all of the time. But then like the one play where Emmanuel Forbes, I believe it was, got a pass breakup on him, Eric Bieniemy is yelling at him like, you got to fight for that, you got to fight for that, and stuff like that. And I love expecting perfection because Jahan Dotson just scored a touchdown in the preseason against the Browns and made it look easy. Jahan Dotson's been balling out every day in camp and looks like he's Sam Howell's favorite target right now, especially while Logan Thomas is out. And still, the one play that a defensive back has a pass breakup on him, he's getting yelled at by Eric Bieniemy. I absolutely love that, man. He was the right offensive coordinator for the job, man. We made it a spectacular hire right there, man. I'm telling y'all, he's going to make a world of a difference. And then moving on, quarterback-wise, just a good day in general for Sam Howell. And the thing I kind of like now that I feel like maybe some people haven't noticed is that it seems like the bar for what counts as a good day for him has risen. Like 4 months ago, if Howell had the day that he had today, the practice that he had today, we would be going crazy all over social media with all of the dots he was throwing. He was really accurate, making the right decisions. He had like an interception or two, I believe. I think one interception. But either way, overall, it was a really good day. But as of mid-August, it's kind of like this is what we expect. And if anything, we're just going to hamper and only focus on that 1 or 2 interceptions he had today rather than how great he was the rest of the day. So today wasn't a phenomenal day. It wasn't a perfect day, but definitely a good one and an encouraging one. But now it's just kind of like we don't even really talk about it because, again, the bar has risen. What's considered a good practice for Sam Howell as of August 14th is different from what a good practice was considered for him back in like March or April or something like that. So, hey, man, that's a good thing, though. Like, Sam Howell, you've shown us you can do it. We need you to keep doing it consistently. We need less mistakes, more plays. We need more leadership, more command of the offense, going through the progressions, all of that type of stuff, especially now that he's gotten a lot of the technique stuff out of the way, because that was one of my biggest worries with Sam Howell, not only coming out of the draft, but even after that Cowboys game week 18 last year. I was like, there's still some mechanical issues we got to work on, especially footwork wise. It seems like he's polished a lot of that up. So now we're just moving on to we need production. We need results. Again, today was a good practice, but nobody really cares because it was a good practice, not a perfect one. That's really interesting, man. And then moving on to the running backs, the only real significant thing was that I saw one play where Howell targeted Brian Robinson deep down the field, like along the left sideline. Like he literally ran like, I don't know if it was a wheel route or something, but it basically turned into a fade route. He's literally just running straight, like a 9 route along the sideline. Slightly overthrew him, but that's just really interesting that not only Brian Robinson is being an integral part to our passing game as a running back, a guy that a lot of people saw as only a first and second down back. I've been hearing that the past couple of weeks of practice, he's even been given the option to do like choice routes where he at the line is deciding like, okay, I'm gonna run this route based on what the defense is giving me. You know how much trust you have after having a player to even allow them to do that? I'm not even sure if Antonio Gibson is out here running choice routes. That's like really advanced stuff. I'm pretty sure not even every receiver on this roster has the trust from Eric Bieniemy to do choice routes and things like that. And then on top of all of that, this guy's they're at least attempting to throw him deep shots deep down the field, like 40, 50-yard bombs. This is very interesting stuff here. Again, it wasn't completed. There was great coverage, and Sam Howell slightly overthrew him. But I mean, I think that's just more so of a case of Sam Howell just needs to learn how to adjust the ball a little bit differently, because you're not throwing to Terry McLaurin who runs a 4.3 something, or Jahan Dotson who runs a low 4.4 something. You're throwing to Brian Robinson who's a little bit slower. And if that were Terry McLaurin, it probably would have been right on the money. Sam Howell just needs to do a better job of adjusting. Okay, this guy's not as quick as the typical receivers I'm throwing to deep down the field, so maybe I just need to take a little bit off of it. But again, at the end of the day, I prefer for Sam Howell to overthrow people to underthrow them any day of the week, every pass situation, in my opinion. So I'm cool with it, but you know, just something to take from that. And then also, there was some weird drills. Like, man, our running back coaches have these running backs going through some really interesting drills, and this is a new one I've never seen before, like a weird mechanical contraption. It looks like they're just going through a saw torture chamber. Here's the clip right here. I know it's super random and not very important, but if you want to see it, here you go. It's just so random, man, but I love it. It's a new drill every day. The running backs wake up every morning and have absolutely no idea what they're going to do when they're in the drill period of practice. Absolutely no idea. Most of the position groups, it's pretty much typically the same general stuff every day. The running backs have it's always something ridiculous and different. I absolutely love that. Shouts out to the running back coaches, Randy Jordan in the group, man, because, hey, these running backs, what they got to deal with in practice, they get in the game, and it's just like, this is way simpler than what I deal with every day in practice. In practice, I'm out here fighting demons, going through torture chambers, having to skip lava, having to go through all kinds of chaos and stuff. Out here doing like military training almost sometimes. So when they get in the game, just simply running forward through traffic, through just regular human beings trying to tackle them, if anything, I mean, it may not be easier, but at least it's simpler. So, hey, man, I appreciate that. Then moving on to the receivers, Jahan Dotson again killing people over and over again. He even got Rashad Wild Goose with a crazy juke in one-on-ones today. Literally pretty much like uncoverable the majority of the day, some days all day. So Jahan Dotson just continuing where he left off again from practice yesterday, continuing from the preseason game. Jahan Dotson, as of right now, looks like wide receiver 1 according to Sam Howell's eyes. He seems like the guy that's getting most of the targets, especially the past few days. It seemed like at a certain point Terry McLaurin may have been the number 1 receiver to Sam Howell's eyes, but now it's Jahan Dotson. Like I've always said, man, we have 2 number 1 receivers, so it's really not even a thing about who's the number 1 receiver. More so than what's the game plan, who are we targeting more often than not when it comes to any particular game, depending on the matchup of who we're going against. But at the end of the day, they're both wide receiver 1, so I'm not too worried about that. Then Zion Bowens, he's at the very back of the roster. Highly doubt he makes a 53-man roster, and then dropping a pass while you're wide open from Brissett, that doesn't help. But then he made up for it by winning a rep against Emmanuel Forbes in one-on-ones, where he created some really good separation with really good route running. Of course, he made the catch. So, hey, man, that's the way you get noticed, because Emmanuel Forbes, again, had a pass breakup against Jahan Dotson at one point in practice, shut him down one play, and then for Zion Bowens to get open against him, that has to open people's eyes, because it's not like Emmanuel Forbes is trash. If he's doing things like that against Jahan Dotson, and if Zion Bowens got open against Emmanuel Forbes, then you kind of got to look, okay, maybe Zion Bowens got a little something to him. Also, Dax Milne had one of the best catches we've seen in training camp, and it's hilarious because he had a one-handed catch along the sideline, and then he immediately got up and gave the defense the bird on his way back to the line of scrimmage. I love that. You could tell the defense is always talking trash, because for him to even feel the need to do that is like, you could tell they've been saying stuff. They've been talking crazy all day. He finally got a play on them, and he made sure they knew that he got to play on him. He wasn't playing. Also, tight end wise, only real notable thing is that Cole Turner is still, it seems like he's gaining a lot of trust from Howell and getting a lot of looks. So while Logan Thomas is out, it seems like Jahan Dotson has replaced Logan Thomas as the number 1 target overall, no matter the position group. But Cole Turner is obviously, as of right now, with Logan Thomas out, Sam Howell's favorite target in the tight end group. And I mean, look at the game he had against the Browns. One of our highest graded players for a reason. He caught every target, all 4 targets. You had John Bates and Curtis Hodges getting 1 target each, and none of them caught any of them. But then Cole Turner's out here getting 4 targets. He catches all of them, 100%. So that's how you gain more trust in Sam Howell, and that's definitely carrying into practice. Those guys definitely have a certain level of chemistry that I'm very excited about. Offensive line wise, again, like I mentioned during the injury part of this video, Sadiq Charles got a lot of the workload when it came to the starters today. I mean, again, at one point, Samuel Cosme ended up leaving because he got hurt, and Chris Paul stepped in at right guard. Sadiq Charles stayed at left guard. So it seems like, to me, as long as Sadiq Charles is fully healthy, they're going to keep trying him as the starting left guard. And for reasons I've already explained, I do not like that idea. And I'm a big Sadiq Charles fan. I love the talent. It's just, can he stay healthy? My whole logic is, why keep trying Sadiq Charles at starting left guard? It just seems like he's inevitably going to end up getting hurt anyway. I hope not. I would love for him to stay healthy for an entire 18-game season if he ends up starting at left guard. I'm not worried about the talent. But if he's going to end up getting hurt at a certain point, you might as well go ahead and start Chris Paul now, because by that certain point, like say week 8 or something, if Chris Paul had to be thrown out there as a first-time starter that game, he would be better off if you just started him as of today, named him the starter now. He gets to start in reps and training camp, these joint practices against the Ravens, the remaining 2 preseason games. And then if Sadiq Charles, again for a scenario, gets hurt in week 8, Chris Paul is way better off with all of that time as the starter and going into week 8 chemistry with the guys to the left and the right of him, rather than you just plugging him in week 8 as his first time starting since the Cowboys game week 18 last year, and you just, hey, go figure it out. So that's the only problem I have with Sadiq Charles, is literally the injuries. Other than that, I love the talent. I think Chris Paul may arguably have a higher ceiling, but Sadiq Charles, don't laugh at his ceiling either. He's a very athletic, very naturally talented guy as well. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough to put it all together. So there's still a little bit of rawness to his game, but I think Sadiq Charles, if he can for real stay healthy, and again, I really, really hope so, if he can add polish to his game, man, he could be a really good left guard. I think him and Chris Paul both have Pro Bowl potential, but as of right now, their floors are still fairly low. Even though I love what I saw from Chris Paul week 18 against the Cowboys and in that Browns preseason game just now. But I'm not going to crown them Pro Bowl guards right now. But if we're talking just pure God-given talent, natural ability, they both have it in them. But there's just a lot of things, a lot of wrinkles we got to iron out, a lot of issues we got to polish, a lot of mechanical technique, nuance things we still got to work on. But do they have the talent? For sure. But also at one point today, man, Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul, they did a great job picking up a stunt. And it just looked really good. And it's like, it seems like Charles Leno has chemistry with whoever's at left guard, whether it's Chris Paul or Sadiq Charles, Charles Leno, and the guy to the right of him just do a great job of picking up stunts and twists and stuff like that. So it sounds like as long as everybody's healthy, we're in good hands regardless who starts at left guard. So that's the main thing I want to say. Again, I'm not trying to get down on Sadiq Charles too much, but man, I'm sick of the injuries. I'm very afraid about how injury prone he is, but we'll see. But yeah, man, at one point when they were working in the ones, they passed on a stunt by Jonathan Allen and FL Bada so well. It looked so seamless. It looked like they've been working together for years. So that's very noteworthy. The Commanders are definitely going to look at that and be like, okay, that's something to note for sure. Like, we better, hey, Sadiq Charles and Charles Leno will look good together. But again, like I already said, Chris Paul looks good with Charles Leno as well. We saw it in the preseason game, seen it in several days of practice, and Sadiq Charles has been dealing with his calf injury. So we'll see how this competition goes. It's probably going to go down to the wire. Like, literally, we will not know who started at left guard until maybe like days before week 1. I mean, I hope the Commanders know way before then, but maybe us as fans or media members and things like that, they may not even tell us. We'll see though. Then moving on to defensive line, Ron Rivera said that Montez Sweat has looked very good in camp. He said, quote, "You just know he's ready to take that next step, very similar to what we saw with Deron Payne last year," unquote. And that's high praise, man. If Montez Sweat is going to be the next guy to take that next step, it was Jonathan Allen, then it was Terry McLaurin, then it was Deron Payne, and now it's Montez Sweat. I hope Chase Young gets into some of that as well. He looks like he has the potential. Montez Sweat had that ridiculous play to cause a turnover on downs for 4th and 1 from the goal line from the Browns. That sack that he had on Deshaun Watson was amazing. It just looked, I mean, granted, he was unblocked, but he just looked so explosive and athletic. It was beautiful. I think he's going to have a big year this year. And again, the fact that Ron Rivera feels like he's going to make the same jump that Deron Payne did. Remember, Deron Payne, I mean, don't quote me, but I don't think he was even scratching 7 sacks in a season for real. And then he just suddenly went for like 11.5 last year. I'm hoping for a big jump like that from Montez Sweat. And if Rivera says that he's seeing that from him, again, I feel like this defensive line is going to be the best in football. And Montez Sweat taking that jump, taking that next step forward is going to be a big part of that. Then linebacker-wise, nothing very noteworthy today. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to the defensive backs. That's the only position group I just like heard and saw absolutely nothing on. I kept digging and digging and digging. Nobody cared about the linebackers today. So maybe if I were at practice, I would have had something for you, but nobody cared about the linebackers today. So I'm so sorry. Rico of Street Scores apologizes. Then moving on to the DBs again. Emmanuel Forbes had that one-on-one rep with Zion Bowens where he got beat. But then again, at the same time, when he went against Jahan Dotson, he had that pass breakup and caused Jahan Dotson to get yelled at by Eric Bieniemy. And then later on in the day as well, Emmanuel Forbes got another pass breakup against Terry McLaurin. So again, if he's getting pass breakups against Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, I know they get busy. There's no question about how talented they are. That means that Zion Bowens is just simply getting better, not that Emmanuel Forbes got worse. So that's everything you need to know there. But I just think it's funny that Forbes is out here getting people yelled at, getting people in trouble by Eric Bieniemy. Jahan Dotson getting yelled at. Everybody getting yelled at today because Emmanuel Forbes is locking people up. I absolutely love it. Then also Tariq Castro-Fields had a nice pass breakup on Byron Pringle at one point in practice. Eric Bieniemy yelled at him. So shouts out to Tariq Castro-Fields for causing that as well. Like I already spoke about earlier though, Jahan Dotson had a really good route against Tariq Castro-Fields where he juked him out of his socks. But then at a certain point in practice, he got a really good pass breakup against Byron Pringle. And I think Byron Pringle has a really good chance of being one of those receivers that gets one of those last two spots. So that's very noteworthy from Tariq Castro-Fields. That's another guy with a crazy ceiling, crazy speed and athleticism. Just got to put it all together mentally, and he can get something serious, man. Also, Jeremy Reeves at one point dropped a very easy pick from Jacoby Brissett. And man, I wish we still had Chris Harris here to yell at him and say y'all don't like nice things. I miss that guy. I miss that guy on the practice field. But at the same time, later on in practice, he was able to intercept Sam Howell. The ball was a little too high for Cole Turner. Again, when in doubt, Sam Howell's going to miss too high, and I prefer that than too low, especially depending on whatever the situation is. In this situation, it wasn't a good one, but I'm still not too mad at him. But again, Jeremy Reeves dropped an interception at one point in practice. Then he made up for it by getting the one where Sam Howell overthrew Cole Turner. And again, like I spoke about earlier with the tight ends, Cole Turner is getting a lot of looks and targets from Sam Howell. He's definitely gained his trust. And then the fact that Jeremy Reeves is making plays like this as a super duper backup safety, he's going to make the team because of special teams. But when in doubt, if he has to go out there on the field for any reason, like in a regular season game as a defensive player, as a safety, not a special teams guy, the fact that we're in good hands definitely rests my nerves a little bit. Definitely takes a little bit of weight off my shoulders knowing that we're this deep at defensive back this year. The cornerback group, the safety group, top to bottom, super deep. I'm not even exactly sure who's going to get a couple of those last spots as well, just like the receiver group. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, in very random news, the Commanders had a salute to service event in the Commanders bubble after practice, and they were putting them through a combine. It was really cool. And Ron Rivera spoke to them after practice and everything. That was really cool. Now moving on to the news that I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all are here for, some joint practice updates for the Ravens coming up. Rivera said that he expects his players to be competitive over the next two practices against the Ravens. He doesn't want things to get chippy though. Instead, he's looking forward to them getting the most work they possibly can while working against another team, because when things get chippy, people fighting, you're wasting time. And I can already see Eric Bieniemy now. If anybody gets into any altercations and is wasting time, he's going to be livid and cussing everybody out. So Ron Rivera is basically echoing the same feelings that Eric Bieniemy had when offensive players are wasting time, when the refs were in the way that one time, when the refs were at practice. He is not playing. We need to get in as much work as we can. These joint practices, we set these up for a reason. Why would you waste time? We're not going to get this time back. And then he said, quote, I was very direct about that, and I'm going to be direct in the next couple of meetings that we have leading right up to practice, Rivera said. We don't want to go around and bull, S-H-I-T. We want to get around, we want to learn, we want to grow, and we want to be able to work our offense and defense and special teams against a good football team, which is very notable. Just doing joint practices, just point blank, I mean, there's benefits to it, but the fact that we're doing it against a good team like the Ravens, I think is very noteworthy. I think that makes these joint practices even more crucial and impactful into how good of a team will be entering this season. Thank goodness we're doing joint practices against the Ravens rather than one of the, worst teams of the NFL. I'm really happy about that. That's a great point. A very well coached football team as well. John Harbaugh does his thing. That's pretty much been one of the standards for probably the last 14 years since John Harbaugh arrived on the scene. So again, I'm very happy that we're going against a football team that's very talented, that has a lot of culture, that's used to winning, that has a certain standard to them. Plus they have Roquan Smith, my Georgia Bulldog. They have my boy Kyle Hamilton's who's from Atlanta. So I have a lot of attachment to that team as well for different reasons. A few other players that I'm really interested in too. And then also John Harbaugh already told the Baltimore media that some Commanders players will check out the Ravens practice facility this evening. Well, by the time I'm recording this, it's 10:30 p.m. right now. Before this recording, earlier in the day, after practice, they went over to the Ravens facility just to, get a feel for whatever's going on and all that type of stuff. Rivera said, quote, we're looking forward to it, and I've talked extensively about the practices and the practice schedule and the format and the tempos and all of those things, and we're all on the same page. We're actually going to meet with them tonight. Some of their players are coming up tonight. We'll meet with some of our players, and we'll get on the same page with the drills and things like that. That's always helpful. We've done that over the years. He also said sometimes we do it the day of, of. We're practicing in the morning. So we decided to do it tonight when they come up. They're going to branch off with that group and come over here. I think they wanted to see the setup too. But it is normal to just try to get together beforehand, build a plan, and everybody communicate and try to get the most out of what we can, unquote. And I feel like that's like one thing that people don't really realize with these joint practices. This is not like an NFL sanctioned thing that the NFL like monitors, organizes, and things like that. This is literally just our two teams coming together and deciding they want to practice for a couple of days. That's literally it. There's no like format of exactly what drills, what personnels. Do you do starters now? Do you do backups? This is completely created, formulated, organized, and put into place literally by our teams, by our coaching staff, by our players, however they want to do it. This is not something that like Roger Goodell comes in, or the NFLPA or whatever, and they come in and say, you do this at this time, you do this at this time, we're going to do it here at this time, we're going to do these drills, these practices, we're going to have the starting quarterbacks come out and do these, we're going to do one-on-ones now, we're going to do 7-on-7. No, this is completely driven by Ron Rivera, John Harbaugh, and whoever else they have a part of the process. So that's why they're having to go through all of this to see exactly how we want to do it. So I'm appreciating the fact that they're doing their due diligence and like going ahead and planning a lot of stuff, getting it out the way early, so by the time they start practicing tomorrow morning, or by the time you're watching this today morning, this morning or whatever, everything will be situated. It should go smoothly. They already know. And it's not even just how they practice like with drills and stuff, but also how much contact do we want. Let's try to avoid any altercations and fights, any injuries especially. So I'm glad that they got that out the way. Also, the Ravens already posted their podium schedule for their joint practices with the Commanders, and so 9:30 a.m. it will be practice versus the Commanders both days, and then at 12 p.m. they'll have certain people speak. So for them, 12 p.m. they'll have John Harbaugh start every after practice press conference. But on Tuesday, August 15th, Mark Andrews, Marlon Humphrey, and Lamar Jackson will talk. And then Wednesday, August 16th, Odell Beckham Jr., my boy Roquan Smith, and tackle Ronnie Stanley will also talk. So that's really interesting. Sadly, though, the Commanders don't give us that big heads up like days before. They typically announce it like in the morning, but we should expect to see some starters talking like Sam Howell, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, maybe Chase Young, guys like that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please stiff arm that like button if you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything. Please stiff arm the subscription button if you're enjoying the content so you can stay tuned for more of it. And stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release these informative and opinionated videos. You get a notification each and every time and immediately. That's big, man. I'm telling y'all, if you don't have that bell hidden, you're gonna get like a notification about this video by like August 20th or something like that. Maybe even then you may not even get it. So make sure y'all hit that bell next to that subscription button. That's big time. And then of course, man, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything I talked about in this video. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't get any linebacker news at all. I mean, I guess one update is that nobody got hurt. I guess that counts as an update. And then also, of course, let me know how you feel about everything I said. Do you agree or disagree? Any points? All of that type of stuff. Are you excited about these joint practices coming up as well? That's big. And then, of course, man, appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.